Good morning, Year 10. I hope you're well and having a lovely day. So this is the last week before half term, so just one more week to get through, and then you can have a break. So please could you do now, which is to write down the names of any poems from your study this term that explore passionate feelings for another person. So as this is love and relationship poetry, there's quite a few that may come to mind. For at least one of these poems, I would like you to write down any quotations you can remember. So please pause the video for 5 minutes to do this now. Okay, so you may have come up with now, the passionate embrace as the focus, or bright star, the desire to be with his love forever. However, if you have chosen other ones, that's fine. There's a lot of poems that you could use to answer that question. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, and finally, a song, The Wish to Be with the Lover. Please could you write the title of Poetry Part A Practice, and also write the date and stick in the document that I've uploaded to Class Charts, which has both the seen and the unseen poem. So for this lesson, you'll need a printout of the poems that you can annotate, a pencil for first thoughts and ideas, and different coloured pens or highlighters. So please pause the video to make sure you have everything you need for today's lesson. Okay, so Paper 2, Section A, Poetry. This is a reminder of the information you should have already noted down. If you haven't noted it down, please do so now. If you've got it already, no need, just listen to it. So poetry is part of the second exam paper that you will sit for English literature. So remember, there's 2 papers for English language, 2 papers for English literature. Section A of poetry works in the same way as Section A in Paper 1 and Inspector Calls. Part A, comparison of known text with unseen text, 45 minutes, 20 marks. Part B, write about another moment or poem from a known text from memory, 30 minutes, 20 marks. This means you will have a poem you know next to a poem you don't, and you'll be asked to compare how something is presented in both poems. That's for Part A. The 45 minutes should be 15 minutes planning to include reading and annotating both poems, and 30 minutes actually writing the essay. For the unseen poem, you will need to work through the same stages we have been using while introducing you to the anthology poems. 5 minutes to take notes and key information and add to exercise book. So first you have a first reading, which is where you read through and get a gist or a feel for the poem. So you're looking at the title, considering what you can work out, reading through it a couple of times, getting to grips with the content, and you just think about things like mood, tone, what type of language, what's the feelings behind it, what are the emotions, that kind of thing. Second reading, you start to note down, annotate ideas, focusing on the question. So you're picking out devices that convey feelings, you're linking it to the idea of the question, and you're commenting on form and structure. And finally, you have the third reading. So this is where you look to make connections with the other text. Have they used the same devices for different effects? Have they achieved the same effects using different devices? Do they present similar viewpoints? What are the similarities and differences in light of the question? So you should have what's all written down in your book. If not, please make a note of it now. So let's put this into practice, looking at a Part A poetry question. So for this, you'll need a copy of both poems. The question sheet attached to Class Charts has this. It might be helpful to stick the poems into your book. You'll also need to write this question as a new subheading. Compare how the speakers in these poems present their feelings for the women they love. So please pause the video to make sure you've got everything in your book and everything stuck in. So we've got a really beautiful poem. And so we've got Bright Star, which we've read before, so I'm not going to read it again. But we also have The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. So I'll read through that with you. And the first time, don't be thinking about language and structure, the question, just appreciate the poem, get a feel for it, get to grips with the main ideas, and then when you start reading it yourself, then you can look at it in a bit more detail. But for now, when I read it, just get a feel for the poem. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that valleys, groves, hills and fields, woods or craggy mountains yields. And we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks, by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses, and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle, embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made from the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, their lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. So remember, you're comparing how the speakers in these poems present their feelings for the women they love. As we've talked about before, you start by focusing on the poem you know and spend 5 minutes on doing this. You don't need the process of first and second readings for this one because you know it already. You read through and pick out anything you might comment on that relates to the question. How does Keats present his feelings for the woman he loves? So pause the video and spend 5 minutes doing that now. Okay, so then you think about the new poem and you spend 5 minutes doing that. First of all, you make sure you read it through to get the gist. What's it about? How does the speaker feel? Then you read it through looking for language and structure and picking out anything that relates to the question. How does Marlowe present his feelings for the woman he loves? So please spend 5 minutes doing that now. Once you're clear about your ideas for both poems, start to plan your connections. You have 5 minutes to do this, and I would like you to find a minimum of 3 connections, either similarities or differences, between these two poems. So once you have a plan, you need a clear argument. So spend 2 minutes formulating an argument now. The best essays are great from the start. The student asserts a clear argument and is ready to convince the examiner to agree with them. It's important to think about what your opening will be. Often students get to the crux of their argument just as the essay finishes. If you're not sure, leave a space and go back to it. Your thinking might be clearer at the end. I would like you to try to write up one sentence that sums up your argument for this essay. So please pause the video and do that now. Okay, here's a reminder from last lesson about how you could structure a paragraph. So please pause the video to read through this now. With the remaining lesson time, I'd like you to have a go at writing this essay, making sure you have at least 3 comparative paragraphs. So a lot of you struggled in terms of the quiz getting the comparative words. So furthermore and additionally are just connectives, you don't use them to compare. The 2 ones which were comparative were both and however. So things that point out similarities or differences between the 2 different things. So remember, the examiners are looking to see clear comparative points using comparative connectives. So both, similarly, likewise, however, on the other hand, conversely, those kind of words. Evidence from both poems, terminology and one-word analysis when exploring language, and consideration of both language and structure and their effect. If it helps, go back to look at the exemplar work from last lesson to help you. Don't forget to read the examiner commentary too. So the link is on class charts. So please pause the video now for 30 minutes to have a go at your answer. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much for your hard work. And I just want to say I know that poetry is quite tricky. And as I've mentioned before, that's why it's a really good idea if you have extra time to go online and look up the analysis of these poems because there's only so much that we can fit in and a lot of it is subjective. So it's really good to get to kind of get a feel for various people's analysis of different poems, as this will really help you when it comes to the exam. Because if we were in class, we could debate these poems and the language and the structure, but debating isn't really possible in this unusual forum. So that's why I would really stress the importance of going online, just Google, Bright Star or Now poetry analysis and read through it. It won't take you long, but it will give you a better understanding about poetry as a form, because the beauty of poetry is that there's so many different ways to interpret it, and often our own experiences and our own feelings colour how we read the poetry, how we interpret it. So reader interpretation is not always the same as authorial intent. So an interesting debate that you can have, or we can have once we all get back, is what's more important, what the author intended or how you perceive it. I have a very strong opinion, but you'll have to wait until we're back till I can share that with you and you can tell me what you think. So that brings us to the end. If you would like feedback on your work, please email me pictures of your handwritten work or type it up, and I will, of course, read it and give you some feedback. Okay, so thank you very much for your work today, and I look forward to